CCA stands for the Corrections Corporation of America, but the full name is hard to find on their website, despite the considerable volume of text published there. Then again, perhaps it is precisely because of this abundance that specific items provide difficult to locate. While on the hunt, the casual researcher is submerged in CCA's branding mechanism, an impressive array of smiling, diverse faces in and out of uniform, dramatic tales of volunteerism, ethical assurances, value guarantees, video clips with exhilarating soundtracks, promises of meaningful careers, and outlines of comprehensive rehabilitation programming. The impression given is of a mid-sized liberal arts college or a particularly well-funded organization dedicated to public works. What follows is not an exhaustive investigation into the history and practices of CCA, as they are now known, but a few observations on how it is presented to the public on www.cca.com, primarily via the homepage. My observations are informed by the central questions: what is this website for? What is it intended to do? This is a kind of a walking tour through the labyrinthine outskirts of cca.com, and I find no clear path towards a categorical understanding of this website. It is, as I mentioned, enormous. It hosts what seem like countless pages of text, cross-referencing, modifying, and reiterating aspects put forward by CCA, dividing and multiplying. In search of a map, I first turned to the website menu. Above a photographic banner, a red menu bar lists the following options, each of which has its own expansive drop-down menu. About CCA, partner with CCA, inmate services, security, news, locations, and careers, followed by a small search icon. Clicking on About CCA leads to a new page with the headline, Learn About Us and Our Role in Corrections. The phrase, about us, personifies the organization. Rather than the monolithic statement, about CCA, us describes a group of individuals who make up the whole. Us asserts subjectivity. This page has an informational purpose. With it, CCA defines itself as a company. Itself, themselves, personal pronouns are catching. Beneath another personifying title, We Are CCA, is a picture of one smiling man with a name tag, badges, and a tie. Presumably, he is standing in for the great many members of the CCA workforce who form that we. The text reads, Our company, the first of its kind, was founded in 1983. Our approach to public-private partnership in corrections combines the cost savings and innovation of business with the strict guidelines and consistent oversight of government. This has produced proven results for more than 3 decades. The length of the company's existence is mentioned twice, and it is stated with pride that this is the first company of its kind. This is said using the possessive pronoun our, indicating that perhaps the speaking voice is not the total mass of employees, but the owners, or those who have a financial stake in the company. The line that divides the two we's, that of the workers and of the owners, blurs or is made permeable. But what exactly is it that CCA does? The paragraph goes on. Our company designs, builds, manages, and operates prisons, jails, detention centers, and residential reentry centers on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the United States Marshals Service, and many states and counties across the country. If you had trouble following that, you're in good company. An article is missing towards the end of the series, the word in, I think, so perhaps not even the copy editor managed to read this sentence to its conclusion. In the final paragraph, a case is made for CCA's public good. I quote, "We benefit America by protecting public safety, employing the best people in solid careers, preparing inmates for reentry, giving back to communities, and bringing innovative security to government corrections, all while consistently saving hard-working taxpayers' dollars. We are America's leader in partnership corrections." America is invoked twice. The text uses the adjectives best, solid, innovative, and hard-working. Points made in this paragraph are expanded throughout the social responsibility information grouping under the website in the pages for protecting inmate and detainee rights, adding value for taxpayers, providing proven reentry programs, improving our communities, ensuring governance with integrity, and fostering meaningful careers, in that order. Each of these pages has subpages and sub-subpages that open and shut up like a telescope or a family of nesting dolls. Resources, PDFs, and links to news articles that also derive from the CCA website. The themes of these categories hop back and forth. Inmates to taxpayers, them to us, reentry to communities, as if CCA is positioned at a crossroad, the lone watchdog, looking out for the rights of both the taxpayer and the incarcerated. The notion of proven results is repeated several times, though what these results are and how they have been proven is not remarked upon. A unilateral way of doing things, the CCA way, is asserted. The values of the CCA way are having pride in all that we do. Pride here is an acronym for professionalism, respect, integrity, duty, and excellence. This formulation of pride is illustrated on an icon of a red 5-pointed star. The other major category that the About CCA information category is divided into is titled Who We Are, and is largely devoted to corporate myth-making. Its subsets are our history, executive leadership, board of directors, vice presidents, and corporate ethics. The Our History page includes the most notable pull quote, "New companies are created every day, but it's not every day that new industries are established." National Reentry Week is this week. Did you know? It runs from April 24th to 30th, making today the last day of National Reentry Week. The homepage banner features a photograph of an institutional hallway. The title reads, "A Team Approach to Reentry," and below, CCA honors first ever National Reentry Week. 5 people stand in a row, representing the promised team. The 4 on the left are women. The 4 on the right look to me like they might be related. All 5 are employees and not inmates of what is most probably a prison, though no signs indicate a specific type of institutional setting. Hospital scrubs suggest hospital. The other outfits tend to suggest high school, or DMV. All 5 are wearing conspicuous name tags. It is difficult to find photographs of incarcerated people on CCA.com. Clicking the red Learn More button leads to a news article about several different reentry training programs at CCA facilities. Within the article, National Reentry Week is clarified to be a holiday designated recently by the Department of Justice and is not a whim specific to CCA. The Banner Photos Team of 5 is named as the Gateway Reentry Program. The program description states, unique in every way, CCA Cibola County Correctional Center's Gateway Reentry Program prepares non-U.S. residential offenders for gainful employment upon returning to their home countries following release. The vast majority will return to Mexico. As an aside, I can't help but wonder how the phrase unique in every way bears out in this context, how this program has managed to avoid doing anything ever done before. The text continues. The voluntary program includes more than 100 hours of content delivered over 12 weeks and focuses on developing employable skills, which gives offenders a better chance of lasting success. Cibola will proudly graduate its first class of 27 offenders on April 26th. There is no further specification as to the nature of the content or the method of content delivery, nor is there evidence supporting the claim that these methods give offenders a better chance of, quote, lasting success. The first class in this program wasn't even set to graduate until last Tuesday, so any measure of successful reentry is simply not yet possible. Three more reentry-related initiatives are briefly described in the article. The word reentry appears 23 times on this page alone. Back on CCA.com's homepage, beneath the banner image of CCA Cibola County's Gateway Reentry Team, there are 2 prominent blocks of text. Plan a visit, with its adjacent button, Find a CCA facility, and Join the CCA team, with its adjacent button, See Career Opportunities. This would perhaps indicate that these are the 2 major practical reasons for consulting CCA's website, to plan a visit or to apply for a job. CCA.com/locations is part of a greater tradition in digital literature. Other common websites with pages dedicated to visitor information might include universities, museums, historical sites, and other recreational attractions. On CCA's Find a Facility page, it says, from California to New Jersey, CCA has facilities throughout the United States. Use the state filter and map below to find the facility location nearest you. Asterisk. This seems to suggest that one might wish to visit a CCA facility in the same way that one might wish to patronize an Applebee's or a Six Flags, that CCA facilities are interchangeable from one to another, and this convenient app allows potential visitors to locate the closest and therefore best option. Why would a person drive to a Chili's 3 hours away if there's one at the nearest mall? 71 facilities are dotted across the facility map. Following the before-mentioned asterisk to the bottom of this page, the footnote reads, information about visitation and inmate contact can be found on each facility's profile. Due to the diversity of our contracts and inmate populations, the regulations pertaining to visitation and inmate contact are specific to their respective facilities. Please familiarize yourself with the latest posted information as policies are subject to change. Here, my parallel to a chain restaurant fails, as no popular dining destination I know of disclaims complex, site-dependent regulations for visiting. Further, it is of course unlikely that a person would pick a CCA facility to visit at random. People don't visit a CCA facility for its own sake in most circumstances. They visit a person, someone who has been incarcerated at the facility. Though it looks like something different, this is a resource for friends and family of prisoners to ascertain the logistics of how to visit them. It is a completely different paradigm of visiting. It is not just a visit, it is a visitation. Back at the home page, the careers button leads to jobs.cca.com. The background of jobs.cca.com is a photograph of a heroically posed man in uniform, hands on hips, his chin tilting up towards the sun. The circle of clear focus around his head begins to blur at the shoulders. His hands are fuzzy, pole shapes in the distance, indistinct. The copy reads, "I am James, and I am a correctional officer, and I am CCA." 3 statements of identity in one sentence. A name, a profession, and an existential identification with a company of employment. Remember, about us and our company. If the substitution holds in both directions, if James is CCA, then CCA is James. James both represents himself as an individual and the company as a whole. It bears emphasizing that he is only one in a series of employees personifying CCA, and that it is his individualness that is being deployed, and nothing about him particularly as an individual. Sunglasses conceal James's eyes. His expression is inaccessible. Beneath, in blue, an appeal. Make a difference. Join our heroes. Search for positions at CCA, and a search bar. According to this construction, CCA employees are heroes. If CCA employees are CCA, an unstated conclusion hangs in the air. CCA is heroic. If you work at CCA, you will be a hero. Or at the very least, you will be working for employers who think you are one. There is a protective ownership to the phrase, our heroes. Under the lights of praising its employees, CCA claims heroism for itself. The job site also features practical tools. It allows prospective applicants to read about career opportunities, search for jobs, and apply online. The career menu opens out into another room of many doors. Why CCA? Correctional officer, nursing, healthcare providers, become a warden, our military connection, and teachers. Further down on the home page, 2 more text-image superimpositions with links testify to CCA's altruism and social responsibility. One declaims, "Our mission, advancing corrections through innovative results that benefit and protect all we serve." The button, "Discover Our Values," leads back to the social responsibility homepage. Social responsibility, you'll remember, is a major subset of the About CCA information grouping. The other graphic reads, "Restoring lives. We're committed to providing proven reentry solutions to empower men and women to break the cycle of crime." Its button, "Learn More," directs to the Inmate Services homepage and a whole new litany of categories and subcategories. Reentry services, life skills training, inmate wellness, wellness activities, reentry programs. My efforts to sketch a boundary of understanding around CCA.com are continually frustrated. Though this is a self-contained world, kaleidoscopically referring to its own moving interior parts and devoid of external links, The seemingly authorless, or collectively authored, website knows no perimeter and only invites duplication. The rhetorical apparatus is so successful that I cannot distinguish between what is being concealed, revealed, and constructed. Claims pile up. This is CCA. This is CCA. CCA, never Correctional Corporation of America. That name has been wholly elided. CCA.com maintains that CCA is not what you think. Thank you.
While legislation has not been passed to abolish private prisons, legislation does require publicly traded corporations to disclose their finances in the form of an annual report to shareholders. In this presentation, I will examine how a corporation that carefully constructs its public image to obscure its true identity curates such a document for two very different audiences. I was advised under excellent counsel not to start with a chart, but to skip over the chart would be to fulfill the intention of its design. Positioned at the top of the first page of the Corrections Corporation of America's annual report to its shareholders, this chart lists the company's financial highlights from 2014 and 15. The first three figures that appear reflect CCA's revenue, net income, and adjusted net income. At a glance, CCA's 2015 revenue appears to be $1.793 million, its net income roughly $221,000, and its adjusted net income roughly $227,000. But if one reads the italicized text inside the black bar at the top of the chart, the true value of these figures is realized, quote, in thousands, except per share figures, end quote. Factoring in this variable, CCA's revenue in 2015 inflates to $1.793 billion, its net income to $221 million, and its adjusted net income to $227 million. These true values are nearly 1,000% greater than the figures representing them in the chart. Those of you who are familiar with annual reports know that this kind of obfuscation is not unusual. The difference is that corporations often try to hide a loss, not a gain. In this formula, the expansion of a figure to its true value first requires its reduction. To get to billions, one must think in terms of two lesser values, millions and thousands. This is where the chart is less benign than it appears. It requires a kind of inverse thinking, whereby to expand is to reduce, and to reduce is to expand. By the time one moves on to the text of the report, one has already been indoctrinated into this psychology of paradox. Though formally addressed to CCA's dear fellow shareholders, as a document just clicks away from public access, the annual report is primarily addressed to several different audiences. Those who may arrive by bureaucratic necessity, those who may be unaware of for-profit prisons, and especially those who may be critical of them. This last group is of a primary concern. If one slogs through the 172 pages of CCA's more comprehensive financial report, it will find this concern directly expressed. Quote, "The operation of correctional and detention facilities by private entities has not achieved complete acceptance by either governments or the public. The movement towards privatization of correctional and detention facilities has also encountered resistance from certain groups, such as labor unions and others that believe that correctional and detention facilities should be operated only by government agencies. Legislation has been proposed in the United States Congress to prohibit the federal government from entering into contracts with private prison operators and to limit state and local contracts for privately run prisons. Such legislation runs contrary to our business purpose and, if passed, would have a material adverse impact on our business. Moreover, the belief or market perception that such legislation could be passed could have a negative impact on our stock price." End quote. It is for this reason that the shareholder, savvy enough to disentangle the distortion of data, need not to be paid too much attention in the annual report. The shareholder is, after all, the author of the letter. He is the one who encrypted it. How does a corporation with a private profit to report address a public who may find the source of its profit problematic? The following is a rhetorical strategy. First, a social or economical problem is identified: overcrowding, recidivism, crime. Then the problem is called a challenge or a crisis. Next, the challenge or crisis is qualified as serious, significant, or unprecedented. Now the government is in need of addressing an unprecedented crisis. How much in need? 24 times in need. And its needs are not ordinary. They are critical, complex, and unique. So critical, so complex, and so unique that a specialist like CCA must be brought in. In this formula, CCA once again appears as an inversion of itself, not a corporation exploiting a social problem for profit, but a public service reducing and alleviating a social problem. To reinforce its role as public servant, the word private is almost entirely omitted from the report. It appears just 3 times. The word partner, however, appears 41 times. These are quotes. "We see our government partners facing serious challenges. CCA has a clear commitment to our government partners. We've taken what we've learned in more than 30 years serving our government partners." Partner is a sneaky word to conceal the absence of private. Both words begin with the letter P. Both have the same syllabic structure. Both have 7 letters. And of those 7 letters, 5 are the same. Fat has been turned into muscle, but the body comes out weighing the same. By the end of the report, CCA has referred to its government partners so many times, one has a hard time remembering that CCA is not part of the government, nor is the government part of CCA. The government is CCA's client. A corporation's annual report to its shareholders can't entirely conceal what the corporation is. Despite CCA's proclaimed commitment to reduce recidivism, lower the cost of incarceration, save taxpayers' money, alleviate overcrowding, break the cycle of crime, expansion, not reduction, comprises a much greater portion of the report's cellular constitution. In just 12 pages of text, expansion, or some variation of it, build, construct, rise, acquire, develop, increase, extend, span, ramp, is referred to 70 times. In every context, it is the measure of growth, celebrated as an achievement, a success, a highlight, a meaningful contribution. Expansion is so expansive that not even an aerial shot, taken from what must be some several hundred yards in the sky, could fit all of the Truesdale Turner Correctional Center into the frame. What is the message? To the shareholder, we are big and we are growing. The return on your investment is guaranteed. Look, you can see it, you can almost see it, just outside the frame. This is not a distortion. Even as the inmate population in federal facilities has declined over the past 2 years, CCA has continued to expand. In 2015, it constructed new facilities, renewed state and federal contracts, and increased its revenue by almost 9%. How can this be? How can expansion and reduction occur simultaneously? If you take a closer look at the photograph, you'll notice that while no building appears to be more than 2 or 3 stories high, there are 16 individual structures, and there seem to be more outside the frame. The expanse is not skyward, it's sideward. This is the new blueprint for CCA's growth. Once upon a time, as the inmate population increased exponentially, CCA could build new prison after new prison. Build it, and they would come. But as these populations have begun to decline in some states, CCA has redirected its expansion horizontally, as seen in the picture. This explains the many different classifications of CCA's correctional services. The Central Arizona Detention Center, the Kit Carson Correctional Center, the Lee Adjustment Center, the Carver Transitional Center, the DC Correctional Treatment Facility, the El Paso Multi-Use Facility, the Houston Processing Center, the Bridgeport Pre-Parole Transfer Facility, the Turley Residential Center, the South Texas Family Residential Center, and the Broad Street Residential Reentry Center in Philadelphia. Not only do these classifications obscure what prison is, they each represent additional markets. According to its report, CCA is now the second largest provider of residential reentry services in the United States, with 17 reentry facilities representing 4,365 beds. This expansion is referred to as part of CCA's, quote, reentry platform, a natural extension of its correctional services. Again, CCA invokes the rhetoric of public service to disguise its private principle, that the release of a prisoner does not mean the end of its profitability. Profit can follow an individual to the next phase of his or her incarceration. Last year, CCA spent $157 million to acquire the Avalon Correctional Services, a residential reentry company that operates 11 facilities. How many people in CCA's custody have successfully reintegrated into society? How many did not return to prison after their release? Even during National Reentry Week, such figures can't be found. Can expansion and reduction be simultaneous? What happens to the manufacturers of blood sugar test strips if diabetes is cured, or to the makers of armor if there are no wars? Can a for-profit prison be truly invested in the permanent release and rehabilitation of inmates without also being invested in its own collapse? Perhaps the photograph is an unintended warning. What lies beyond the frame? What market? What industry? What potential for profit? Does profit already follow an individual beyond incarceration, beyond release? In case you are still wondering what CCA really is, as of 3 years ago, it legally converted to a real estate investment trust, or a REIT, for federal income tax purposes. As a result of this restructuring, CCA recorded a net tax benefit of $137.7 million during the first quarter of 2013 alone. In addition to the tax benefits, there is also, to some, the moral comfort of knowing that one's money is not technically invested in prison, but in real estate. Thank you.
As we move toward closing our program, I invite you to continue your own search of the prison industry. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do. Feel free to look up the addresses of the board of directors of any of these companies and then get out your Google map search and drive by their homes and see what the profits can buy. Pools, 7 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, poorly constructed, shabby mansions that litter the surrounding landscape of the prison. If you try to make sense of these pages, you might soon feel, as we did and do, that this is a travel down a rabbit hole. And keep in mind the pages you see one day may soon morph and disappear the next. Unlike the catalog I mentioned in the earlier program today, I still have that gigantic phone book, but this will be absent soon. Unlike many of the images we've seen, already there was an image of an African-American woman that was in full color just a few weeks ago. Now she's been bleached to a black and white photograph with text put over her face. So that's the kind of changes. If you go back to try to see something you saw previously, it won't be there. As my colleague Bernice McFadden noted in her address, many of these companies will find a way to molt and shed their skins. Just as Philip Morris a few years ago found a way to morph and is now part of it anyway, the Altria group. But our aim at this point in the program is to fulfill our earlier promise and to show you a little bit more of the industry's own corporate writings, the future that the profiteers have planned for our neighbor Mexico. And with that aim in mind, the last figures I want to leave you with are these. Now, these are again taken from the annual report. They concern the source of all of CCA's overall revenue. The federal government represented the following percentage of revenue. In 2013, the federal government supplied 44% of revenue. In 2014, it was 44% of revenue. In 2015, it was 51% of revenue. The second stream of revenue was from the Bureau of Prisons. That has actually declined as populations have been being released in certain states or reduced. So in 2013, from the Bureau of Prisons, the revenue was 13%. 2014, 13%. 2015, 11%. A few years ago, the Immigration and Naturalization Services changed its name to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Its corresponding acronym went from INS to the sharper and more air-conditioned sounding ICE. ICE in 2013 accounted for 12% of revenue. 2013, 12%. 2014, 13%. 2015, 24%. The increase results from new contracts for family-style detention centers that were previously mentioned that provide all sorts of wonderful training programs to prepare you for your return to Mexico or any other country. We will keep you until you are trained, I assure you. Now, if we examine the racial aspects of these facilities, not just for Mexican men, women, and children who've broken the law by crossing our borders, but of our American citizens who are being held in correctional facilities, it's soon easy to recognize what Bernice noted earlier, that our country's much declared Emancipation Proclamation has, even after more than a century, a long way to go to deliver its hope. No doubt there are many questions today to be left unanswered. For the images that you saw today, I believe, illustrate what the Czech writer Václav Havel, in his famous essay called The Power of the Powerless. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And it is an idea that we today have tried to implement as a group, that we are trying to harness and cultivate our collective group mind because who wants to sit in their room and look through 170 pages of corporate crap by yourself? The last images I want to leave you with occurred last year. There was a sit-in organized by some of the students at Columbia University, which some of you may have heard about. During the sit-in, the students demanded the Board of Trustees divest the school's endowment of any investments in the private prison industry, and thus they would have to forego their future share of those profits, even if they went to education. The students won, and the university, in its alumni magazine, is now proud to share this victory. The students have been redeemed and recast from annoying disruptors to brave and sane scholars. The temptation here is to make statements. I mean, I'm saying this temptation is mine at this moment, to make statements that announce what we as the powerless must do next. So please let me refrain, and I leave you to discover your own power on this topic, and I leave you to develop your own plans and your own reactions to it. This concludes our program. I thank you so much for your generous attention, and we look forward to meeting you afterwards. Thank you.